All right, schemers, this one's for you. I'm Dave Makes Noises, and today we're asking, what is your favorite trap to use as a D&D DM? Part 1. This room is much larger than the other rooms you've seen so far. It has weapon racks along the wall holding short swords and short spears. 4 white circles are drawn on the floor, one in each corner, that are about 15 feet in diameter. You don't see any enemies in the room. There is another door in the center of the southern wall. Take a moment to see if you can find the trap yourself. The players were level 1, going through a keep filled with a sort of kobold militia that had been oddly well organized. This was a dungeon and campaign of my own creation that I ran as a teenager, probably 15 years ago in D&D 3.0. The quotes are more of a recreation because it was too long ago to remember what was actually said.
Wait, what is up with those circles? I don't like it. I'm going to check for traps.
You check around the circles, but you don't find anything that might be harmful. As far as you can tell, it just seems like a chalk drawing on the floor.
No, that's not right. I'm going to grab a handful of dust and throw it in the circle.
The dust lingers in the air inside of the circle.
Nothing happens to it.
Nothing happens to it.
Okay, I'm going to grab one of my daggers and throw it into the circle.
The dagger lands with a soft clang inside the circle as it bounces off the floor.
Okay, I'm going to take my armor off and throw it in the circle.
It takes a few minutes for you to remove your armor, but once you're undressed, you throw your armor in the circle. It lands with a thud next to the dagger. I can't figure this out. What's this circle for? All right, fine. I'll try it. I put my left foot in the circle. You explode. Really? No, your left foot is now in the circle. I guess I'll enter and grab my things. You take your dagger and spend a few minutes putting your armor back on. They spent a few more minutes poking and prodding at the circle, but could never find the hidden trap. They eventually walked on to the next room, and when they had to walk back through this room to exit, they nervously stepped around the circles as we left. So what was the devious purpose of the chalk circles? The weapons around the room were meant to indicate that this was a training room for the kobolds, and the chalk circles were sparring rings. I was never able to engineer a trap that was nearly as devious as the players themselves made out of the innocuous training room. Maybe I should have also had them fight the most undefeatable of monsters, the dreaded gazebo. Mimic. Now, I don't mean just the straight-up creature. No, that's too predictable. I like my traps to be something that you don't expect the thing to be when you first see it. I'll explain. When I write an adventure, I try to have some of the expected tropes from role-playing games to give a general sense of familiarity. Then I take some of those tropes and make them into traps. I set clues so it doesn't just feel like the players are being forced into bad decisions, but rather give a sense of maybe we should pay more attention. Once the group came across an abandoned town with spider webs covering the buildings. Inside each house, they found desiccated corpses frozen in their last moments. Some were sleeping, others having dinner. The group was positive they were going to fight giant spiders, so the corpses arose and attacked. While fighting, one player commented how strange it was for zombies to come from spider victims, then realized the tie-in when they decapitated a zombie and spiders poured out of the stump, creating a spider swarm. Spider zombies! Later, in the same campaign, the group came across a sauna in the middle of a swampland. Initially, the prices were too high for the group to afford, but the attendant slashed the cost to a fraction of the initial amount. The group eagerly paid their dues and went to soak in the springs. All except one. He kept commenting on how strange it was for there to be a spring in the middle of a swamp, and how they were too eager to waive the fee. So while the rest bathed and rested, his character sat in her room, weapon drawn, door barred. The next morning, the group woke up to the sound of a gunshot, and everybody but the clever girl had aged 10 years. The spring was a reverse fountain of youth, and the leading clue of the overarching plot of the campaign. TLDR, I like my traps to not look like traps instead of playing into the tropes expected in RPGs to teach my players to be more thoughtful about their environments. Or I'm just a sadistic bastard who enjoys seeing my friends suffer, one of the two. Accursed Nun. As atonement for abandoning her order of healers, she was sent on a quest to this dungeon to confront the evil within. She's gotten herself lost in the maze-like tunnels and has been wandering for a few days now. She is beyond relieved to meet the player character's party, offering to heal any character who is injured. She then begs to accompany the characters, offering her continued services as a healer. Her punishment is much harsher than she realizes, though. The maze-like tunnels are actually a single, simple, circular tunnel/path with 2 ways in and out on opposite sides of the circle. The nun and anyone who accompanies her believes they are traveling through a complex system of tunnels, taking multiple turns, each new passage always appearing unfamiliar. In reality, they're just walking laps around the same circle. The nun has actually been walking this circle for centuries. Immortality and partial amnesia are part of her curse. The players can eventually discover that something is amiss, perhaps by laying down a trail of string or by realizing that the nun's story doesn't really add up. She is unarmed, unarmored, and carries no supplies deep within a very dangerous dungeon or through detection spells. The only way to escape the illusionary maze is to slaughter the unarmed nun. She never dies to a single attack and begs for her life, but doesn't defend herself or else totally abandon her. She will beg and weep, but will not follow or accompany the party, if explicitly ordered not to. There is no way to save her from her cursed existence. Once she is killed or abandoned, she will remain where the party left her for about an hour, then stand up and begin trudging around the circle again, with no memory of the interaction. Player knowledge can sometimes work against you. I wanted to illustrate this in a game I was running where one of the players was constantly using player knowledge inappropriately. It's okay to assume that characters will have general knowledge regarding things they encounter. You might have heard about how to deal with a particular monster in a bar where an NPC told a story about an encounter they'd had. I give percentage chances for this, and if you make a successful roll, I'll give you some information regarding a given monster, but good role-playing calls for separating character knowledge from player knowledge. It also encompasses class in the sense that fighters shouldn't tell magic users what the appropriate spell in a situation is. Again, I'll allow a percentage chance for a character to have some information regarding a particular opponent, but that's the only information you can use. Admittedly, this is one of the more challenging dynamics in role-playing games. Well, the player in question, who was playing a fighter, kept using knowledge the character didn't have. I decided to set up a trap that would teach the guy a lesson. This was in a 2nd edition campaign. The party, averaging around 10th level, had made its way deep into a dungeon where they came upon a large room with a series of pillars blocking sight lines. You couldn't see to the other end of the room. As they moved through the area, they came upon 3 stone golems. The party had never encountered such things previously. Rolls were made to see if anyone had some knowledge regarding stone golems. There were 2 successful rolls. One of the characters had heard that only magic weapons +2 or better could damage a stone golem. The other had heard that such constructs could cast slow spells on opponents. That was it. Sure enough, the overly knowledgeable fighter suggested the party's magic user cast a transmute rock to mud spell, as this would slow a stone golem for a number of rounds. The magic user was 9th level. The area of effect of the rock to mud spell is 1 20-foot cube per level. So 9 20-foot cubes would affect the 3 golems and then some. The "and then some" was the problem. The foundation of the trap, if you will. A bunch of the stone columns in the room were rather suddenly transmuted to mud. The columns supported the ceiling. With the loss of support, a large portion of the ceiling came crashing down. Several members of the party were reduced to negative hit points and rendered unconscious, and one was killed outright. Oops. The party was able to get out of this mess, barely. The party's cleric was able to successfully raise the dead character, who permanently lost a point of constitution. The trap was purposely created to take advantage of the player knowledge the fighter character possessed and would, I was sure, reveal. Moral of the story here is the age-old moral that's part of every D&D game ever played. Don't fuck with the DM. The players get to a door to a vault. They check for traps. They find 8. 1 poison, 1 fire, 1 cold, 1 electrical, 1 psychic, 1 thunder, 1 slashing, and 1 crushing. They ignore the skeletons in front of the door. I disarm the first trap. Which do you do first? Poison. Roll. 23. You successfully disarm the trap. Make 3 dexterity saves, 1 constitution save, and 1 will save. The last 2 attack you. Unsurprisingly, he was killed. A lot. He was dead by the mind blast, and I took joy describing the scything blades cutting his body apart before a section of the ceiling squashed him flat. Break out the 5,000 gold piece diamond. I disarmed the second trap? Roll. Natural 20? You successfully disarm the trap. Make 2 reflex saves, 2 constitution saves, 1 will save, and the last 2 attack you. Break out the other 5,000 gold piece diamond. Anyway, the traps were a puzzle. They not only had to be disarmed, but had to be disarmed in a specific order. Disarming one in the wrong order caused the other 7 to go off, then reset. When they did some searching, they came up with clues. The summer sun is quenched by autumn's approach, and the adder slumbers in its den. Spring thwarts the bitter bite of winter and lifts the weight from our shoulders. Winter's chill brings to a close wrath and war, and minds are set to rest. Summer brings end to the storms of spring. So the correct order was cold, crushing, electrical, thunder, fire, poison, slashing, psychic. Hello, my darling friend, and thank you for sharing your splendid energy with us, and of course for doing so to the very end of the video. If you've got a favorite trap, please share it with us in the comment section. And if you've got another story you'd like to share with us, please do so on our official subreddit, r/MrRipper, where we gather most of the stories that we share on this channel. If you're a DM or a player hoping to find a group, head over to Mr. Ripper's Group Finder Discord server and see who you find. It would be simply lovely to see you on a Sunday Storytime stream soon. We have been starting to do more episodes with special guests. I hope that this week you try and fall asleep when you feel tired instead of pushing yourself too far. Please, sub for Nat 20s, bing that bong so you can be part of the early squad. We love you, and we're so glad that you've joined us today. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.